On today's episode of The Front Row, we are downtown in the office of Cindy Martin, who is on the board of directors of the Lubbock Heritage Society. Cindy, welcome to The Front Row. Thanks for being our guest today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, for folks who don't know, give us a little bit of background and maybe a little historical context about the Lubbock Historical Society, about who you are and what you do.
Okay. We're the Lubbock Heritage Society. Started in 1979 with just local people who had an interest in history and preservation. I think they had some help from the Junior League to get started. And the first big project was moving and restoration of the Mast White House, which is a attorney's office is now at like 2301 Broadway. That was kind of got the group started, and then done other projects over the years. A couple of the other big ones was the St. Paul's Historic Church, St. Paul's Episcopal Historic Church, which is now a venue. A lot of weddings take place there now. It's at Cact Park.
Right, on University Avenue.
At 40th and University, next to the Garden and Arts Center, and you can rent it through there. But it had many additions. It's a building from 1913, one of the oldest public buildings still there in Lubbock. And by the late 80s, it had been sitting vacant for several years. So it took some time to raise all the money and get the plans going and everything. But eventually, then the city took that over. It's totally restored to its original. So that was another great project. And then more recently, we moved again and restored a 1925 Pullman car, which Arch Underwood brought to Lubbock in 1950, and it's at the Fibermax Center for Discovery, but has all the original features in it, and the original, we by accident discovered that the original upholstery was still there. It was a very exciting day.
Sure.
Mary Kreitz was the architect on that. It was an exciting day for us. But anyway, that was a great project. But advocacy really is the other thing that the society tries to do is, monitor a little bit what's going on, support preservation projects where we can. We've done exhibits, talks, to groups and things like that. But also, a lot of time spent at city council meetings and urban design, historic preservation meetings, planning and zoning meetings when issues come up that have preservation nature. I'd like to say that we've been successful all the time, but that's not the way that works, but we're still at it and we're still trying.
Well, and the longer that Lubbock is here, the more projects will be important to preserve because we'll have a longer history.
Yes. Matter of fact, we just, one of the things, it wasn't our project, but something that we're, really pleased about is the old In-Town Inn, which was then the Jim Kimmel Center for years here downtown, has just been, it's on the National Register now. And it's just opened recently as the In-Town Lofts, and so it's a wonderful example of 1950s is historic now,
right?
And so it's a wonderful example of seeing something like that brought back
I drove
to
past
life.
there the other day. I saw that it was completely refurbished.
Yes,
and looks great.
It's great.
And the park is going up, so that whole area is going to be
There's a
wonderful.
number of things. If people haven't been downtown recently, they need to come downtown and drive around. There's a lot of new things, and a lot of people live in downtown now. So it's great to see the buildings maintained and restored.
Well, that's really cool to see Lubbock Historical Society involved in that.
Yes.
Y'all doing great work.
Thank you.
And that's things I had no idea. That's great. Excellent. Well, and you've been on the board for a while, and you, by our profession, are an archivist. Is that right?
Yes, I was an archivist at the Southwest Collection. I was at Cact for 22, 23 years, something like that.
Okay.
And then an historian and do a lot of local history. I also serve on the Lubbock County Historical Commission. So we, keep that work going as well with historical markers and things like that. Wow. And then I've been archivist for the Northwest Texas Conference of the Methodist Church. And so anyway, that's I've been involved in. I'm not from Lubbock, but very early on as a graduate student working at the Southwest Collection, I started dabbling in local history as people would come in with questions. We in the history business, we call it going down the rabbit hole with them, and we would go with them right down there. So I learned a lot of little fascinating tidbits about Lubbock history over the years.
So you're the perfect person to be on the board of the Lubbock Historical Society. That's great. Well, you have a specific project and event that's coming up tonight. on Monday, and it involves the Cactus Theater. Tell us a little bit about the event.
Well, the event, again, is going to be at the Cactus Theater there on Buddy Holly Avenue, and it's really going to celebrate the Cactus. That building is built in 1938, served as a movie theater for 20 years. Then it was kind of storage for Greer Iron Works for a lot of years until the late 1980s. And when the Depot District started, there was interest in that, and it began to be developed. Don Caldwell and some investors really had he had vision, and that man did. And so they had a vision to restore that theater for live performances, both theater and musical performances. And so the Cactus, as the theater as we know it today, then opened in 1995. And so we've had 30 years of the Cactus Theater. 2016, Daryl Holland acquired the Cactus. But over the years, it's just had fabulous theater performances, but also local musical talent. Texas legends. Joey Lee, Marshall Ball. I mean, I could go on list hundreds of those. And a few years ago, even Nash of Crosby, Stills and Nash was there. So anyway, it's been great. And so this is just to kind of celebrate it. And Daryl Holland will be there and to talk about the Cactus and tell some stories and history. I think people will have an opportunity to go behind the scenes a little bit. There's the Great Wall where everybody who's ever been performed there has signed, and it's a great thing to see. And people have an opportunity to do that. And then local artist, musician, playwright, man of many talents, Andy Wilkinson will also be there. And Andy's got great stories, and he'll tell some, I'm sure, of his personal stories of the Cactus, but also kind of put it in context of within the Depot District and what it's meant to, cultural and entertainment opportunities here in Lubbock over the years. So I think it'll be a fun event. And Daryl Holland says the concession stand will be open at the Cactus because everything's a lot more fun with popcorn and a drink. And so it should just be a fun night. It starts at 5:30 till 7, and so come after work and just stop by. Come on downtown
and people
to the
can
Cactus.
Just come? Is it a ticketed?
It's open to everybody. We hope everybody will come. Yeah, the more the merrier. It's
and restoration of these kinds of buildings, which are historic and do have a place in history, that's not inexpensive. That's a project. You said it began in the 80s, but it wasn't until 1995 that it opened. Is that right?
Yes. And every project, I know the Heritage Society we worked on, because we've always had to raise all the money, and it takes a lot of time for a small group of people in a city that doesn't, it's not the main concern usually in Lubbock. It takes a while to do that. Don Caldwell had some investors that helped, but just the physical restoration of the building took a while. There had been some modifications done. The setback on the front had been closed in. But the cool thing is when they took all that out, they found some of the original, they found the tile. And so then they knew what tile to use to replace, to restore it with. They found chalk lines in there to know where things had been. Original chalk lines were from 1938 were still there. So it does take a long time, and it takes a lot of money to do that. But boy, has it been worth it. And of course, then they had John Thompson do those wonderful murals inside of the Cap Rock there. And so it's great. Well worth it.
So that's coming up tonight at the Cactus Theater at an event that is sponsored by the Lubbock Heritage Society. And our special guest on the program today is Cindy Martin, who is on the board of directors of the Lubbock Heritage Society. Cindy, thank you so much for being our guest on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope everyone comes.